All right, welcome everyone. So good to have you with us today. First time in a long time. We're back. It has been a few months. For those of you who are new here or watching this recording later, my name is Ty Stevenson. I am based in Auckland, New Zealand. Originally from South Africa, just wrapped up a massive holiday over there with the family, traveling all around Durban and Cape Town and game reserves. It was absolutely wild, quite literally about as wild as it can get, getting really close to lions in the wild within a couple meters. Which is just amazing, and then having some time in Dubai on the way back as well. Just unforgettable family time, guys. And I just want to encourage you, if you ever have the opportunity to do that kind of thing, do it. Do whatever it takes. We sold our house, threw everything in storage, and just went on the wildest adventure we've ever had, and it was really special. And then now just settling back into Auckland, got a new place, been unpacking, and yeah, it's been quite a journey, to say the least. I think the last time we did one Zoom while I was in Durban when we just covered a bunch of stuff going on in the crypto space. Damon jumped on there. That was super fun. And obviously before that, it's been a while since we've done anything like this. But instead of just rebooting and relaunching straight into business as usual and jumping into charts and things, you know, Dad's still working on some very high level stuff. So is Mario. And guys are winning in the background. But this is not a Zoom about trading. We're not diving into technicals today. We're zooming out and really recalibrating with, you know, why we're here. What has God placed inside of your heart and inside your future waiting for you that you're stepping into? And, you know, part of this, the reason why I wanted to start this way is, you know, while I was in South Africa, during that time, you may have heard when I mentioned it in the chat, Abby, our oldest daughter, had pneumonia. And so, just after we got back from the game reserve, so my wife was with her in a different room for a while. And so I was, you know, up late chatting to Rich on the other side of the planet. The time zones worked out that way, and we were just chatting like about life, about what we're doing, what we're experiencing, what we're thinking, what we're feeling for moving forward. And you know, I can't remember. I saw this recently, very recent. I can't remember who or where said it, but they were quoting Tesla, and he was saying how, you know, think of life in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And I don't know how else to say it, but during those conversations, we were just talking about things that were causing us to really just get higher inside of our thinking and what was possible and the kind of impact that we want to have, the kind of community that we want to be a part of. And really that was it, like this idea of just like, you know, what more can we be doing to really help the people around us grow? And this idea was, you know, not just financially, of course, and mentally, but like the spiritual side of it as well, the physical side of it. And so really this conversation just kept flowing, and it was, you know, quite a few nights in a row, hours and hours just chatting about leveling up and, you know, are we doing the best we can to level up ourselves and those around us? And just wanted to start that conversation flowing on further, because we've been chatting a whole lot since then. We've had Zooms and videos and all sorts and brainstormed a whole lot of new things. And so there will be plenty of trading things coming in the future. But, you know, for you to step into any abundance externally, whether that be financial or physical, whatever, you've got to level up on the inside. You've actually got to become that person on the inside. You've got to have a very clear burning vision of what that version of you looks like so you can start to grow into it. And then this is a case of setting some healthy boundaries and accountability, making a plan and running it. But, you know, while I was in South Africa, during these conversations with Rich, I had a few people reaching out to me here and there, mentioning their struggles, like not just struggles in trading, but they're actually their mental struggles. Like they were seeing psychiatrists, they were, you know, people that were really facing things. And my advice to, you know, one person in particular was like, stop trying to force, you know, trading in a hurry. Like I've never ever said that this is about chasing money. It's about chasing a skill set and learning a skill set. But if you start to make trading or business or these other things idols, and you're violating things inside and you're forcing things and you're like sleeping 3 hours a night and your family's in a mess, rewind, like pause at least, and just zoom out and start to look at life. And you know, there's some people in the community at the same time that are thriving. You know, it's so cool to see some people I know that are just really going after, you know, accountability and goals and improving in their health and all those different things. I'm not going to name names because I'm going to leave someone out, but I know there's a lot of you that I have spoken with that are intentionally pursuing better. And so, you know, part of that conversation, you know, Rich is obviously, I mean, goodness, guys, if you've been following his journey, if you're not following him on Instagram and or Facebook, make sure you are, because he's putting so much gold online and just authentically, like what he's been working through, what he's been growing through, the kind of results he's getting, the people around him, the results they're getting just by leveling up. And so I wanted to just bring that conversation into this space, because we've been chatting so much and we just want that to overflow into our community so that we can start to really build from a place of everyone knowing exactly what they're going after. What's the most important thing in your life that if you knock over this, it makes everything else easier. I call those domino goals. Like if I get this right, what becomes easier or not even necessary. So Rich, I'm going to find you. I can see you. So good to have you with us, bro. Thanks for jumping on. I know it is still Friday over there. It's Saturday over here. But man, thanks, dude, for always being so present and available and just being real and transparent about it all. I mean, you wrote such a good post. This is the one that is flashing at me right now. About a month or so back, just commenting on the space that we're in, the entrepreneurship space, whether it be trading and marketing mixed together, all those different things, and just really winding back to the most authentic version of us and you, so to speak, of just giving some honest commentary on what we're experiencing and how we can really level up and help people in this time and space. And I know you wrote something else the other day too that really rocked me. It's just, the mental health issues that people are facing right now. And from that space, like just going, guys, we need to start talking about this a bit more and just raise the awareness, because it's so easy for, even in our own community where we have connection here and there, but some of us are spread out around the world, for people to just not talk about how they're not doing well, if that makes sense, and rather just want to really create the space and make ourselves even more available to just for people to voice that. And so, bro, thank you for being here. Yeah, how's your day been so far?
Good, man. Good to see you, bro. I mean, we've been talking every day, so it's good to see your face. And yeah, doing well, man.
Nice, bro. Nice. I mean, yeah, let everyone know, I mean, where are you at the moment, bro? I mean, since we've been rocking together the last 3+ years, you've gone from Canada to Costa
Yeah.
Rica to Panama to Colombia, and now back in Panama.
So kind of to back up a little bit. So I moved to Costa Rica 2021. And then after 9 months, moved to Panama, but I was in Panama City, and then traveled about 6 or 7 months of the year, traveling and not being here and being all over the place. And then spending time in, different countries, but really always feeling like there was something pulling me back here. So came back here, I guess it would be around June, beginning of June. And then ended up meeting a guy who invited us to come out to a different part of the country and spend some time out here, and we just fell in love with it. So I moved up to I'm in a place called Boquete. It's the coffee country here in Panama. So mountains, volcanoes, kind of looks like Hawaii mixed with I mean, there's beaches on either side, and then Costa Rica on the left side, and it's pretty peaceful. It's pretty calm. It's allowed me to really become more present, less distractions, more healthy, more focused, more productive. Just feeling like this is where I really wanted to be. So yeah, got a new place here. Going to be here for a year or two, and I love it, man. I'm really, feeling like this season is a time to settle into something. It's a different season, but it's settling in to, really what the work is that needs to be done and the people that need to be helped. And for me, eliminating distractions as much as possible has been huge. So yeah, it's been good. So I'm in Panama. I'm a resident now. I got a driver's license now. I got my company's here, my bank's here, everything's here. So I basically completely migrated from Canada, and I was just in Canada for 10 days for my sister's wedding. And it was good to be home. It was good to see people, but I love it here. This is definitely home now. So yeah.
That's so cool, man. Like you said something in there that just leapt out of me. It's like something about what you can focus on, like being there, being present. Obviously now driver's license and being there, but it was this other thing there. You reminded me of part of our conversation a while back, where it was like there's so much noise in the world right now, whether it be elections or crazy weather events, all these things that are outside of our physical jurisdiction, outside of our control, and it's just consuming a lot of people. And obviously, if you flick open your feed or if you look watching the news, it's so easy for that stuff to just consume people's thoughts, their emotions, their conversations, and you suddenly just begin reacting to everything. I've watched this around me, and Jess and I have so many conversations about this, because if you're wired, like, she's got a beautiful heart for justice, and so when she sees things that are got aspects of injustice going on, it's easy to be, focus on and get consumed by it. And at the same time, it's just knowing your lane, right? Knowing what God's highlighted for you. Like if you're an intercessor and you're a prayer warrior, then sure, he's going to bring things in front of you that you need to pray for. But really, at the same time, just for each of us, having the self-awareness of knowing what is in my lane for the season, what can I control, what can I focus on, and how can I actually move the needle forward to further towards what God's got for me? Because if you don't have mental health locked in, then all those external things are gonna, rip people off their path, so to speak. And so I don't know if you've got anything to say about that, man, because I know you've been observing a whole lot in that space too, and just, yeah, what have you been seeing that's working in that sense?
You know, I'll say it like this. So, when I sit back and I look at the world right now, and I've been doing a lot of writing as well. That's another thing I've been spending a lot of time doing is I'm writing every morning. And what seems to continue to come up is that the majority of people, right? I've researched a lot on this subject lately as well and studied a lot on this, but people are, the real pandemic and the real problem in the world right now is that people are feeling a lot of hopelessness. People are feeling a lot of anxiety. People are feeling a lot of helplessness, like they're not in control. And, my journey over the last 3 years from really, 2020 till today, I would say the last 4 years has been, learning that and really understanding and becoming aware of the fact that all I can do is I can focus on the things that I can control. And the things that we can control are what we think, what we say, and what we do. That's it. You can't control, I call them organized distractions. Like if you look at the election or the latest war or the latest who bombed who or the latest, weather event, and there's all kinds of theories about what, these latest weather events, the causes of those and different things. It's like you can literally spend your entire day and all your bandwidth focusing on that. But as I've been having a lot of conversations, especially with guys over the last few months, it's like when you shift your focus to what can I control and then going all in on that, what happens is not only do you become really disciplined, but you become you go from survival to creation. And I think that's one of the biggest things that's been on my heart lately is we like the world, all the society that we live in wants us to be in survival mode, right? And this goes back to, I mean, if you look at the way that the education system was created, the way that, the current, these health events and all the viruses, all the things that have happened. If you look at, where the average person is today financially, or where the average person is today emotionally, right? And again, I've been speaking mainly with guys, but it's like men today are literally like they're going, how do I go from survival to creating the life that I want? And so I've just really done like a deep dive on a lot of this stuff over the last few years, and my transformation in my own life, and I have, personal development to thank for that, and good mentorship and good people in my life, good coaches that I've worked with, and people that have been able to just give me resources and be a support system for me and stuff like that as well. So I have to give credit to them. But like my experience the last few years has been going from waking up in the morning and going, how am I going to feel today? To waking up in the morning and saying, I know how to take control of my mind. And, that goes back to starting the day with gratitude and, starting the day with focusing on, my future and not my past and all the things that, I mean, we've been talking about this stuff for years, but it's like, when you start to compound all these things and you start to develop these daily disciplines, life actually becomes beautiful, and life becomes like this adventure that's like you can live this beautiful adventure of life and not be concerned about all this stuff that you can't, that you cannot control. You don't even like I care about it, but I'm not, I heard Bob Proctor say one time when he was being interviewed about COVID, he was like, well, why would I think about it? I can't control it. I can't do anything about it. So I'm not even going to think about it. He didn't even let himself go there in his mind to think about what was going on. He just, how can I create more value? How can I help more people? And really be inside of his purpose. And for me, I think my purpose has really come from, from that place, and identifying too, like a lot of the pain that I've been through. I heard somebody say one time, like your pain will become your purpose. And I never want to go into that place in my own life and really look at the pain that I've been through, because on the outside looking in, it's like I was born in Canada, right, to a pretty good family, and have some crazy rough upbringing or anything like that. But I had pain that was self-inflicted pain that I inflicted on myself and I brought on myself. And I always tell my guys that I work with, I'm like, dude, you're in control of how much pain you want to put yourself through. I put myself through a lot of pain. But when I look back at that, I realized like my purpose came out of that. And my the words that I want to say and the words that I want to write and the things, the message that I want to get out to the world now is like, you know, when we really kind of tap into that place of authenticity and say authentically, where am I right now? And authentically, where do I know I could come up to? Where do I know I could get to in my life if I'm really truly authentic and real and honest with myself? And that's kind of that's a place that everyone has to be ready. You have to be ready to go there. It's not like everybody just wakes up in the morning and it's like that's what you're thinking about, but it comes from either hitting rock bottom or going through enough pain to get there, or just deciding that, you know what, like I'm not playing to my full potential. And I think that's one thing I love about network marketing and the industry of direct selling and personal development and everything else that comes along with that is when I joined the industry, I joined for that reason. Like I wanted to join for the personal development so that I could become better and so that I could grow. And I found that the more I grew, the happier that I was. And so it's been a season of really tapping into a lot of this stuff and having these conversations. And what I've found and what's been really, you know, quite I guess as I become more and more aware of what's going on for the average person out there and the more conversations I'm having, it's like this is widespread. Like this is something right now where, I mean, the suicide rate is through the roof, depression is through the roof, prescription drugs use is through the roof, alcohol use is through the roof. Like people are just, you know, they're like trying to cope and they're trying to figure out how do I get from here to here and what do I do? But I'll say it like this. It's not what you do, it's who you be. It's who you have to be. It's not what you have to do. You know what I'm saying? I guess that's the bottom line for me.
Right, that's so good. Like that brings it right back to that phrase of that line. I mean, I love it. It was the tagline of I Am for years. I don't know if it used to be on the old website. It says, what will you become? But then, you know, the guy I did a lot of life coaching with like 10 years ago, he always said, like, who are you becoming? Like, who is that version of you in the future? Where are you at right now? And just getting honest. Like you said, like, look in the mirror and go, oh, you know what? There's some potential in front of me, and I'm not living up to it. No, and there's zero comparison with anyone else. This is not you versus anyone else. This is like me versus me. Like this is me knowing inside authentically what I'm capable of, what God's called me to, and am I living? Am I coasting? Am I cruising? Am I living inside of a comfort zone where nothing amazing usually happens? And there's, you know, even just reminding me of the aspects of the fit life, right? Like freedom, influence, transformation, but it's like fit. You know, it's like, what does fit actually mean? It's a standard or a type that is suitable for a certain purpose. And it's like for all of us to actually be fit holistically, it's like, what is the standard that I know for my life? Am I living to that standard? Am I actually watching the certain aspects of my life improve? Because it's funny, like in different seasons, you know, I remember one of the books I read. I think it was it was either the One Thing or Essentialism, probably Essentialism. But in there, the author just talks about like kind of like the myth of balance. Like you're never going to have every piece of your life perfectly balanced because you're never going to move something forward in a significant way in those seasons. And so it was like, for me coming into this space, like when we first got connected, I love how you referenced that aspect of, you know, mentorship and network marketing because I didn't know what it was even when I joined IM. And I just remember having a phone call with you. Like I remember looking at crypto education and Jono put me onto it. And then I got on the phone with you. And I just remember getting off that phone call and just saying to Jess, like, I don't know what it is about this guy, but like I just spoke to someone who has like he's living like a serious version of success that's ahead of me. Like I know this person is actually running, and I can learn from this guy. I just want to. And every time I got off the phone, I would say something like, "I just feel like I'm vibrating at a higher level after talking with you." That's how it was, and it was this idea of just the growth and the mentorship I've been able to experience just from locking in with you, man. It's been amazing. And at the same time, like that's each of us, that we all have a measure of influence, right? And so for each of us, it's owning that and going like, okay, it's like that idea. It's even in the Bible. It's like Paul says, follow me as I follow Christ. It's like following a model, and we're each just a few steps ahead of someone else. And there's a way that we can turn around and help others forward. And yeah, and just in that thing of the fit life, man, it's like each of us owning that thing and deciding, coming back to that balance idea, it's like there's seasons where like I went through going all in for 3 years in California, where it was like full-time study in a leadership and spiritual supernatural school to really level up that side of our lives. Came back and applied a whole lot of that, and then it was all in on rekindling fitness again and getting that back up to shape for a few years and competing. And then it came business and entrepreneurship and trading, all in on that 3+ years. And it's these seasons where you're building these habits and disciplines, and then you're locking them in, and then moving into the next thing to create some focus. But you can never do all things at the same time, brand new. Like you're never going to knock out all those things. But when you get something to a point where it's subconscious, it's habit, it's just you've got a healthy standard in place, then God brings something else, and then you're able to shift some focus and energy to that, and there isn't going to be balance involved. That one thing might be the one thing that takes most of your time and attention. But it's like domino goals, man. I remember, like, for me, this is going to sound quite funny, but I remember, like, when there was a season of my life here in New Zealand where we had a lot of ministries, preachers, whatever you want to call them, like coming in from all over the world, lots from America, but all over the world. And I just remember seeing a lot of them were like really unhealthy. like I was afraid that some of them were sweating so much while they were preaching, they were so overweight that they might have a heart attack in the pulpit. Like it was at that level. And I was just thinking, like, I kind of struggled. I was like, there's an aspect of your life. I'm hearing what you're sharing and your revelation's amazing, but I don't want your life. Like I'm struggling to want to follow you because you obviously don't have certain high level priorities in place. And you might have another 20 years to live, but I don't know if your body's actually got that. Like God's got another 20 years of purpose for you, maybe 50, who knows? And you're shortcutting it. And so like really dived into like really looking at that side of my life going, all right, I feel called to helping people. I feel called to ministry, all those kinds of things. But I don't have a working model yet of someone that I can see that I want to lock in with in this space and really run, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, just those little things, man, like a domino goal. Like, I mean, if you don't, like I've heard someone say, you've got 100 problems until you have a health problem, then you have one problem. And that's been a lot of our conversation recently too. It's like neither of us are facing any crazy health issues, but it's like, every now and then, you realize that, okay, like I need to become bulletproof because, immunity, all those kinds of things, like the world's going crazy. I mean, I can say this, I didn't take any of the prescribed, what do I call them, jab, during the craziness. And I had COVID, and in 24 hours, it was gone and done. Like, but, Jess has gone really deep into making sure that our family is healthy and eating the right stuff and just maintaining our health. So like when we get hit by things like that, it's not like it's wobbling us in our whole lives. And I remember like when I studied, because I got certified in CrossFit, like if you think about fitness being over here and kind of like on a spectrum, like a gauge on a car. I think I mentioned this on a Zoom once. But it's like if unhealthy is on one side, like on zero on the odometer, and as you go like unhealthy, healthy, and fit. And fit being like all the way in the green, like you're good. It's like if someone who's just healthy takes a medical hit, that can slam you back into the unhealthy danger zone. But when you're fit and when your body's good, you can get hit with something and it barely touches you, or it knocks you back slightly, but you're still actually at a peak level of living. And so anyway, that's just been part of our conversation lately, which I thought was really cool, because it's like we have so many people that reach out to us and want to join what we're doing, whether it's coaching with you with things, or whether it's learning entrepreneurship or trading. And I have to say to some people, it's like, okay, you can go all in on this, but I mean, is there other aspects of your life that might actually hold you back from becoming successful in pursuing this right now? Like, do we have to scale it back a little bit and think about mental health, physical health, sleep, like all those other things? I remember you saying that to me once about one guy as well. And it was like just zooming out and going, okay, if that's what I'm aiming for, if I feel like that's in my future, is that for me right now? Or there's some other things I need to take, some other disciplines I need to work on for the next 3 to 6 months before getting into that? Anyway, just some thoughts, but I'm sure you got plenty to say around that same stuff as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's so I've been thinking a lot about personal development, and I know that, one of the beautiful things about network marketing, no matter what company you're in, is you have access to personal development. And when I joined the insurance industry, I was a construction, like a laborer for a guy who ended up teaching me over 3.5 years how to run a construction company and do jobs and run projects. So then I started my own company, moved to another city. 6 months later, I joined the insurance industry, no idea what insurance products, how they worked. I was learning from like zero, reading all these books and reading about sales and reading about how to do presentations and all this stuff. And I dive into this world of business and start studying successful people. They start prescribing me books to read. So I start reading personal development, and all through that time, I mean, my habits were like terrible, like my personal habits, terrible. But I was getting all this head knowledge. Then I joined network marketing and I studied all this personal development. And the last 5 years, obviously, it's been mainly people like Bob Proctor and Alex Morton, like, top people in like legends, right? And I'm studying their information and I'm going, what is the block? And I've even had conversations with Alex before. I'm like, when you see the average person, right? Maybe you're making 6 figures a year, okay? And then you see someone making 8 figures a year. And you're like, what's the difference between this person and that person? And is it just the personal development? Is it just the books that you read? Or is it just the number of live classes or seminars or videos you watch or whatever? Or is it something more than that? And there's one thing to be said for time. It takes time to get to, the journey is the destination, but at the end of the day too, it's like it takes time to build yourself into the person that you want to be. But I really believe this now, that there is this missing link in personal development where you have go read a book, go to a convention, go to a seminar, get on a go live call, or get on a Zoom call or a training call. And then there's me on the other end who's, barely sleeping. I'm drinking every other day or every day. I'm eating terrible food. I'm dehydrated. I'm a little bit anxious. I'm kind of depressed. I think about my past more than I think about my future, all these different things, right? My mental health's terrible. And I'm supposed to be that person, but then I'm supposed to go read something from Bob Proctor or somebody like Earl Nightingale, and I'm supposed to go, oh yeah, I can just apply that in my life right now and everything's going to be fine. It's like, to me, there's this gap, and I like to kind of visualize everything, right? I'm very visual. So it's like, when I think about this lane of personal development and then the people over here, it's like there's this gap where I feel like we need to have the conversation about, what are like, how in alignment are you, or how out of alignment are you? Like if you were going to take a car and you were going to go race that car on a track, but it was out of alignment, you're screwed, right? If you it needs an oil change, it needs to be, it needs to be cleaned. Like all these things, like I look at, what's happening for a lot of the people that I'm working with now one-on-one, starting new businesses, buying new cars, getting into great relationships, like having all this success. Yeah, you see them losing weight, or maybe they see their abs, or maybe they have more energy and all these, and the physical stuff is like coming along as well. But it's like, I'm having a conversation with them and I'm saying, what do you do first thing in the morning? What do you do last thing at night? And what are you doing in between there? And how much booze are you drinking? How much sugar are you eating? How much processed food are you eating? Like processed food is a scam. Processed food, if you go back 100 years, there was no processed food. Now everybody eats processed food and everybody's depressed and anxious. It's like, why is everyone's mental health so terrible? It's like, well, what are you putting in your body, right? And we don't think about this stuff because all we hear from our mentors, or all we hear from the people that we idolize, is read this book, go to this event, all this stuff. So you have like fitness, and then you have health, and then you have mental health. For me, it really started, I think a few years back, it really started with me just kind of looking at myself in the mirror and saying, what's one thing that I can stick to, that I can do to start building this foundation of self-discipline? Because, and I'll kick it back over to you on this point, but basically I had this negative view of discipline for the majority of my life until about 2, 3 years ago. I was in an airport. I was flying out of San Francisco, and I was waiting to board my plane, and I'm listening to this Bob Proctor interview, and he said, discipline is not a negative thing. Discipline is not punishment. And I had discipline and punishment right here my entire life. So I was thinking to myself, well, if I become disciplined, that means that this is going to be painful. This is going to hurt. This is going to suck. And he said, discipline is an act of love. It's self-love. It's loving yourself enough to do the things you know you should be doing. And I was like, I just kind of sat there for a second and I was like, wow, and then that kind of that was like a paradigm shift for me where I started, you know, I looked myself in the mirror one day and I said, what is one thing I can stick with every day for, say, 90 days that's going to give me a foundation of self-discipline, which then, over time changed my self-image. And I have a whole formula on self-discipline to self-image that I've created as well, which has been an interesting topic to get into with people as well. So, yeah, I'll ask you, I guess, or kick it back over to you on what your thoughts are on that. But the whole
That's,
discipline,
yeah.
bro, and that gap has been like that awareness of that has just been massive.
No, that was huge. Can you say that line again about discipline and the way that you said something in there, but it was so profound. I just want to hear it again.
So I used to have this view of discipline that it equaled punishment
Mm.
because when I was a kid, I was a bad kid. I got spanked a lot, right? Like my mom broke every wooden spoon and plastic spoon in her house on me, So like, we're going to discipline you if you do this. And I was like, okay, so discipline is punishment. But when I listened to what Bob was saying that one time, as I'm sitting in the airport, I have my headphones, I'm sitting waiting to board this flight. And I remember Bob saying, discipline is an act of self-love. And if you love yourself enough, you will then start to do the things that you know you should be doing the way you should be doing them. And so for me, I really started to drill down on that, and that's been, transformational.
Yeah, dude, it's so good. Like that right there. I feel like the things that they need to incorporate in high school is can you imagine coming out of high school with a healthy understanding of self-discipline and how to do the right things to improve and grow and become healthy and oh man, like anyway, the wonders of now. I mean, this is. I mean, anyway, I'm just so grateful that my wife is homeschooling, and I know I saw Lisa in there somewhere. Like, shout out to all those you mums in the trenches that are like putting in all the extra in that sense, and in general, like parenting, right? I mean, we all doing whatever we can with the best in the amount of time that we have with our kids, but ultimately, it's like we get to raise them, and it's like part of that. I observed my dad being a very disciplined person growing up. Like, I mean, I can remember every single day growing up. I mean, his office was next door to my bedroom, and he was up every morning, definitely before 6 a.m., in there reading the Bible, having some like worship and prayer time every single morning. And I just remember like struggling to get up that early because, teenage years, that was just not a thing at all. But I just remembered I observed a lot of discipline, and I eventually just began to believe the lie that I wasn't disciplined, that I was more artistic, maybe like my mom, and less structured and disciplined like my dad. Not realizing, and I believed the lie, like I'm a night person, I'm not a morning person. And then I realized after reading, like someone just broke that lie over me by reading something. It's like, no, there's no such thing. You can actually adjust. Like I know there's certain chronosphere types, like I have read another book called When by Daniel Pink, The Science of Timing. And we are wired to be productive at different times of the day and maybe have different sleeping patterns. But you can become a morning person. You actually can adjust things. You can, I mean, my alarm goes off at 4:30 in the morning now. It's like, that if I had looked back on that, I remember there was a season, even before kids, man, like in my early 20s, thinking like, there was one pastor said he gets up at 5 every morning and puts in 2 hours of like time into his personal life, his devotions, and his businesses before the kids wake up. And I was like, 2 hours, man, imagine 2 hours. I can't getting up at 5. I thought that was like a mountain I could never conquer. And then you just realize it's like giving yourself some time, giving yourself one thing to tackle for a season. I had to make it fun too. I had to like give myself something fun to do in that first. I remember like I found some like something, what was it? It was like some devotions that were really entertaining or something. Like I would get up and I'd trick myself into like, I'm going to get up and get a coffee and watch something entertaining, but it was still devotional. Like, you know what I mean? But in the midst of that, man, like just, oh, you said some other things in there. It's like, I've been thinking so much more again about health and fitness in this last season, and like we've just moved into a place that's like 700 meters away from our CrossFit gym, and I've got a garage again, so everything's all set up, and just leaning back and going, after having all this travel time, just a lot of reflecting on the healthy habits and the ones that I want to recalibrate again and the things I want to reincorporate when we move into a new place. And it's been a really interesting time, man. Like we've been chatting about that. Like, you know what? There's some things in my life I can just cut out. Like the occasional beer, I don't actually need it. Like you said something the other day that was profound. You said something about like, oh, like even if you have one alcoholic drink every 48 hours, it blocks your body from burning fat, like for the following like 48 hours, something to that degree. And I was like, wow, like all those little things, like no matter what you do, if there's even just a little bit, it can still prevent you from becoming healthy. And I remember it jogged my memory about this one preacher. I heard this one guy yonks ago. He said something profound. He was really challenging his congregation. He actually went on this fitness journey, and the Lord told him for 7 years, you cannot preach about this because you haven't been consistent with this. But then he went on this 3-year journey, got himself healthy, showed a picture of himself to the congregation when he was grossly obese, and said, look, this is where I came from. I'm going to expose myself to show you. And he said something that, oh man, let me just get this right. He said he was praying for revelation around this. He asked God, like, God, give me a verse. Like, I'm going to be like challenging my congregation. Like, this is not just about the outside. So God woke him up at like 3:45 in the morning with a verse in Samuel where, the Lord says, like, man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. And he's like, yeah, okay. And he's like, he knows all this thing, like, my heart, my center of being, where I make my decisions, my character. That's what we assign to that verse, right? And then he wait, God, what's the revelation here? And he felt the Lord say, I was speaking spiritually. I was also speaking physically. And he felt to go and Google, what is the #1 cause of death in America? And the #1 cause of death is heart disease. And he was like, oh, the Lord looks at the heart. So he basically was sharing this from a standpoint like, what if your physical heart can't actually handle the plans and the purposes that I have for you, and the places I want to take you, and the things I want to do with you? What if you've gotten your place to? And he was just, he was just blown away. But I was blown away the way that he heard that. I was like, wow, there's something there in terms of like just speaking to. I mean, I've had a huge passion for health and fitness all my life, but haven't been operating at my peak for the last few years because I've gone all in on building some other things because I was really fit, but I was also really broke. So I had to recalibrate a few things. But just cycling back into it now, like the Lord just reminding me of this stuff, going, you know what? Ourselves and anybody watching this now or later, we're each in different places and stages of life, and so are our families and so are our kids. But just really thinking about that, like, wow, the enemy has convinced people that you can basically dig your own grave with your knife and fork. And we'll confront people about the obvious sins like the binge drinking or the whatevers, but we'll shout people dinners and give them all this. And like he commented on that, like pastors would take him to lunch and they'd pay for it. And they'd say like, get some more, get another one, get some to go. And he was like it was just, it's normal. It becomes part of a culture. And then you zoom out and you go like, we're actually completely encouraging ourselves killing each other slowly. And it's a really scary thought when we zoom out and go like, wow, this is a thing. And anyway, it's really reignited this passion in me to go, firstly, I'm really grateful that my wife is like rigid. Like she can look at the numbers on the back of labels and tell you what those numbers and preservatives are and be like, nope, we're not getting that. And I'm like, but it's yum. And it's like, nope. And I'm like, okay. And yeah, it's not easy, right? Like making adjustments. Like I'll be really honest, like sugar for me has been probably the worst piece of my diet for life. Like there's enough of it scattered here and there. I mean, way less now. Like, but when I remember there was a season, especially before traveling, it was like, and before even I am like, we just watch TV shows every other night and we eat dinner at 5, which is nice and early with the kids, but then come 8, 9 o'clock, I'm thinking about chips and Tim Tams and some gummies and some ice cream or whatever. And it all feels good in the moment, but I was just wrecking myself. And just getting convicted of that recently. And I mean, like, this is not a thing that we ever usually talk about in our community here, but I'm just, part of our conversations in the last few months has just been this conviction of like, how can we really help people in the season to thrive? And it requires just being really honest and authentic about like, yep, okay, I've struggled with that stuff. I'm struggling with that stuff. I want to actually remove some of that stuff from my life, because if I want to see success over here, maybe I'm actually holding myself back by not having discipline in areas that I thought I did. Maybe it's just cultural. Like you grow up in, I mean, it's funny, like my dad actually was like he was, actually by his BMI, whatever, even if that's real, he was overweight. Like the pictures of him at his 40th, he jokes about it. He realized, he looked himself and he went like, whoa, I need to make a shift. And so he went on a full-on cut and lost like 18 kilos, got himself healthy again, So it's like I wasn't really ever raised in an environment that was unhealthy as such, but at the same time wasn't raised in an environment that understood health and ingredients and foods and things like that. And it's just been really enlightening to learn about it more in the season. But yeah, man, I mean, I just, I've been enjoying this conversation with you, knowing that there's more for us, there's more for you and I, there's more for people that we're leading, and just realizing that we all have influence, we're all leading someone, and it's up to ourselves and the Holy Spirit to convict us of what to make, what changes to make in which seasons. But man, we're in pretty crazy times, right? I mean, between elections happening soon,
Yeah.
all these different things, it's just I love what you said, like bring it back to what can I control, and having that clear vision of okay, this is where I'm at right now. Is this where I thought I'd be nearing the end of 2024? I remember I had that phrase at the beginning of the year. The Lord said like 2024, 2020 more. And I remember saying for some people it might be more of the same. It might be more depression, more anxiety, more blowing accounts, more lack of discipline, more relational breakdowns, or it could be more abundance, more breakthrough, more health, more fitness, more etc. And it just depends on what it is you want to make it, right? And I guess unless we have some form of healthy check-ins and accountabilities and monthly whatever's in place that follow our goals, it's like a goal without a plan is a pipe dream. And so yeah, just like rewinding it back, realizing like I just became so on fire while I was in South Africa, thinking about the kind of community that I want to be a part of in that sense, whether it's local and or online, but just like a space and a place where we are collectively leveling up so much with our mindset, the kind of content that we're consuming and applying and seeing breakthroughs, that there is a waiting list of people that want to get in on it. They have people trying to break down the door to get into the kinds of meetings that we're having because we've been able to have obviously some in-person gatherings, and the last one we actually did, pretty much 80+% of what Dad and I shared at that event was all mindset orientated, because that is so much more the catalyst for our success is what we're thinking, what we're believing, what we're speaking. And yeah, man, just after having a few months off from doing this kind of thing, just felt like we had to really bring it back to that place, recalibrate, and just start thinking and asking ourselves those tough questions going, all right, God, what is in my life right now that you're highlighting for change? Whether that be eating habits, sleeping habits. Like, I mean, I remember, man, you were talking about cold water stuff. Oh, man, I don't know, sometime last year. When did you do that Panama, that surf trip and all that water stuff? When was that?
Yeah, so that was a catalytic trip. That was a trip. So that was November of 23.
Hmm.
And that was my second time out to that place. But started doing some cold plunging and stuff. But before I get to that, I just grabbed this off my desk, and this might sound crazy, but if you want to know what is being highlighted right now, what you just said about Samuel. So I literally in my Bible, okay, here's my Bible. I have my bookmark, right? So today, this morning, if you go back 2 pages, is this verse right here that I read this morning, and I highlighted it, and it literally is that exact verse, bro. The Lord does not look at the things man looks at. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. I literally read that this morning. I haven't read the book of Samuel since I was probably 10 years old.
Wow.
So I just read that today. So that's really interesting that you brought that up. And I was reading about men's health statistics. If you want to read some scary stuff, go read men's health statistics 2024. Hypertension, heart attacks, like you said, is the #1 cause of death. But suicide is right there. And the amount of people that are just like giving up on life and just saying, you know what? I'm never going to be able to get out of this debt that I'm in. I'm never going to be able to get healthy. I'm never going to be able to have the life I want to have. I'm never going to be able to have control over my life or whatever it is that they're seeking. They don't have peace in their life ultimately, and they're just ending it, and it's not being talked about. And anyway, I have been speaking about that a little bit, but to go back to what you were saying, you know, I follow a guy named Myron Golden, and he was saying in a podcast about how we all are so concerned about, having the things we want to have. And in the Bible, basically in Genesis, it says in the very beginning of the Bible, it says, be fruitful, multiply. And then it says, do all these things God said. I think he says 3 or 4 things he wants man to do. And then he says, and have dominion over the earth. So it's be, do, and have. God basically says that in, I think it's Genesis 1 or 2. So what's crazy, as he was saying this, I'm literally just processing this, what he's saying. And it's so clear how it just resonates so much with what I've been going through and the things I've been, learning, but also the conversations and the amount of people that I talk to on a daily basis that are in this exact same place. Is like, we all want to have the things that we want to have. And we think that just by doing the right things, we're going to get there. But the reality is we have to be the right person first. And we have to be the person that is going to naturally do the things that we're supposed to be doing. And if we're doing that, we're naturally going to have the things we want to have in our life. So for example, it's like when I look at, when I just think about, for me personally, I can't speak for anyone else, but when I just decided like I'm going to become the best version of myself in every way, and I'm going to stop making excuses. I've always liked, adventure. I grew up in South Africa. I grew up getting bumps and bruises and stitches and broken bones and concussions. And I mean, I was running pretty hard when I was a kid, right? And then I grew up playing sports, and then through sports, then I went into, travel and all these things that I love. But it's like if you think about what's the best version of me, the best version of me is not, well, I'm having the most fun or I'm having the coolest experiences. The best version of me is actually, how do I feel about myself? Like when I look at myself in the mirror, am I proud of the person that I am? Am I confident because I know I have good intentions? Are my intentions towards myself good? And are they my intentions towards the people around me even? Are they the right intentions? Because that's where confidence comes from. But a lot of people have this massive lack of self-confidence because they don't like the person they see in the mirror. And that was me for a long time. I was always like, man, I feel like I could be at this level, but I'm just gonna kind of hang here. My temperature, my thermostat was kind of here. And when I started learning about, like, I mean, so many people that I've been able to study and learn from, but like when I heard Gary Brecka speak at Break the Code, Ed Milet spoke, I think it was the same day, if I'm not mistaken. So imagine you're sitting there and you're listening to Alex, Ed Milet, Gary Brecka. And I'm like, I could barely sit down in my seat, man. I was so fired up. And he was talking about the highest frequency that a human being can be in is authenticity. And then he gave a practical, here's 3 steps to get into an authentic vibration. And I'm like, boom, memorize that. Okay, I got that. And then he's like, here's 5 things you can do to become a superhuman that are free. Like cold water, grounding, sunlight, breath work, all this stuff. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go do all this stuff that's free that he's telling me right now. And I'm going to start applying that and see what happens. Like I'm very, I guess, practical in the sense that like when I do something or I try something, like when I try a certain food for like a 2 weeks or a month, I'm like, how do I feel after? How's my body respond? How much energy do I have? How do I sleep when I eat that? Like I'm always evaluating. I think that's just how I've always been. And very curious. Like I've been very curious. So I hear someone like Gary and he's like, well, here's 5 things you can do for free. Then I started being able to test out things like the 8 sleep pod, and like, oh man, sleep is actually something you can measure. Sleep is actually something that's more important than we could possibly even realize for our health and performance and everything else. But when you talk about cold water, that's kind of where it all started for me. Was like, I started seeing what Gary was saying, and then I'm like, let me try it. And so, I mean, I have all the guys that I work with one-on-one, I get them doing cold showers, and it's the hardest thing. Like a guy can cut out booze, sugar, cigarettes, all these things, but to go into a cold shower, it's like, I don't know, man, that's just crazy. Like that's the one thing people have the hardest time doing. But it's like the benefits of just cold water, which is free, right? The benefits of just learning how to breathe, which is free. The benefits of, you know, um, meditation, right? It's free, right? I started meditating in Costa Rica in 2021. And a friend of mine, shout out to Tigor, if he's watching this, gave me a Bob Proctor meditation. And I went down into the spare bedroom. We were living in this we rented this huge house, almost like a beach, kind of like a beach mansion in Costa Rica. So there was probably how many, I think there was 5 or 6 of us at one point living in this house. It was amazing. It was 4 stories. And in the main level, there was nobody, there's just empty bedrooms. So I went into this empty bedroom, I closed the door, middle of the day, I lay down on the bed and I do this Bob Proctor meditation, first time in my life. And again, one of those things where growing up I grew up in a traditional Christian church, type environment where meditation was like, oh, that's kind of new agey. I don't know if that's something, and then I go read the Bible and the Bible talks about praying and meditating like a lot. And I'm like, I'm going to check this out. So I'm like, let me test this out. And as I started meditating, it was like this pendulum in my head went from this pendulum, for me, my mental bandwidth and the things that I was focusing on mainly was the past, right? It was focusing on the past. Every day I would wake up, I'm thinking about yesterday. I'd wake up, I'm thinking about last year. I'd wake up, I'm thinking about, oh, I didn't do the things I should have done. That's why I'm not where I should be. And it was this constant state of like, I felt like I was always letting myself down, but I realized I wasn't letting myself down. I just wasn't focused on where I was going. And again, it was an IM event, London 2020. Crazy, probably the best convention the company's ever done. Packed out in Excel Center, downtown London, freezing cold. It's like snowing outside. And we go in, and the owner of the New York Yankees, one of the owners, there's a group of them, he spoke at that event, and he said, the one thing that's helped me, if there's one thing I could tell you guys that's helped me go from a drug dealer in the streets of New York to owning, being an owner of the Yankees, is that in a car, there's a reason why the windshield is 100 times bigger than the rearview mirror. And I couldn't stop thinking about what he said. And I was like, man, if I just start thinking about the future. So meditation, and if you guys, you can go look this up, but like meditation, the word means to become familiar with. That's what meditation means, to become familiar with. So as I started meditating in Costa Rica, I started becoming familiar with my future because I started thinking about and visualizing my future and the life that I wanted to have. And what my realization was through that whole period was that I became aware that I am not the version of me that's going to be able to go and have that life that I see in my mind. If I'm going to go have that life I see in my head, I'm not going to do it as the current version of me. And I think that was one of the biggest awareness, like just kind of like light bulbs. I was like, wow, okay, well, if that's the case, I see I'm meditating, I'm becoming familiar with this life that I want to have and this future I'm creating in my mind, because we're created by a creator to create. Like we are created to create on this planet. If we're not creating, if you're a guy, okay, just to the guys watching this, if you're a dude and you're not creating, you're not building something, you're not creating something, you won't be happy. It just is what it is. We want to go work at a job, or we want to go just do something to get by and pay the bills. And we think, oh, well, if the bills are paid, I'll be happy. But it's like, if you're not creating, you're not actually living. For me, what I believe is you're not living in your purpose. Our purpose is to create. And so as I started meditating, as I started doing all this stuff, and then years later, coming in contact with like Gary. I remember getting on a Zoom with Gary and somebody that was desperately sick and wanted to, find a solution. And I was able to line up this call with Gary and him. And we get on this call and just realizing that like we all start at the same place, but it's the knowledge that we gather, the things that we learn and the things that we apply. And then once we go from surviving to creating, then it's like, you look at how many millions of people Gary Breck has helped. You look at how many millions of people these prominent people out there in business or on YouTube have helped. And you go, why are they helping so many people? It's because they are now in creation mode, So it's a big topic. There's a lot to unpack with it, but it's like, that's all, I guess, part of this conversation as well. And I feel like we could, there's different topics in there, but it's really, that's the baseline.
Dude, I love it. Like yeah, episode 2. We'll have another one because it's, yeah, you can get so detailed on all these little things, but at first it can feel overwhelming, like cold water, no alcohol, breath work, meditation. Because if you're doing none of those things and you have suddenly a list of 5 things to change all at once, it can feel
Oh,
like,
it's overwhelming.
yeah. And like I remember I was struggling with the cold water thing, bro. Like up until going to Bali, because I just couldn't figure out how to fall in love with cold water, like in a shower
It's
context. But
easier in warm weather. It's
yeah,
easier when you're in warm weather.
it's easier in warm weather, which I'm not in, but as well in, but they also had a cold plunge in Bali, like a legit one. Like there was the spa area with an amazing pool, and then there was another area with a hot tub and a cold plunge, and it was so tranquil. It was like no one in there, and these kind of walls around the side and big trees up above. And I just remember like going into that pool, and for 10 seconds it was horrible, but then it became legitimately incredible. The one day I was in that thing 5 times because of how I felt afterwards. Like I'd get out and then go lie by the pool, and it was just different. I got to such a high mental state being in Bali and doing that. And then when I came back, I'd fallen in love with the feeling, and I knew it was beneficial. So then it was easy in the shower after that. And so anyway, like just, one domino at a time, like one discipline locked in after at a time. But that's cold plunge, breath work, like that Wim Hof 11-minute breath work thing, bro. Like that is, the little things that we can do to just shift. Like I remember Gary Bricker, right? Like that event, like I can see Etienne on shouting up at that event with us. Like that was a trip I'll never forget. Like that trip to Miami in January last year, break the code. I mean, Alex Morden in in the spaces of a few hours, we got to sit there and listen to Alex, to Ed Milet, to Gary Bricker. It was just non-stop fireworks. I mean, Grant Cardone the next day as well. It was unreal.
It was crazy.
It was just like that was like one of those events we'll look back on for life. But there was something that Gary said about, I might get this backwards, but it was like the presence of oxygen is the absence of disease.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was the other way around. It was like the absence of, anyway, yeah, pretty much that, right? And so like realizing that, oh my goodness, like the lack of oxygen, if there's low amounts of oxygen in me, there's a higher propensity for having disease. And he talked about like how in the morning, you're almost never going to wake up laughing. You're more likely to wake up sad and depressed because of the lack of oxygen. And then you go, oh, wow. Like, so in the morning, it's actually not a bad idea to spend 10 minutes doing some breath work to flooding my blood with oxygen, because that's going to completely shift my mental state and my health and onwards from there. So it's like these little things, right? These little things that we can apply and start building healthy daily habits with, instead of just getting up early, pounding some caffeine, staring at a screen for a few hours and trying to make some money when like you've barely slept enough and thinking you're going to be in this optimal mental state to crack one of the hardest skills in the world. It's like we just zoom out and go, wow, there's actually maybe a few other things I need to incorporate into my morning routine before, getting on the charts or before leaping into the rest of the day. Whatever it is, we each need to figure out these things one step at a time. But bro, such a good conversation. Could just go on for hours, and it's already almost been 1 hour. But yeah, there we go. Elaine saying glass of water with salt before the first coffee. Yep, I recognize that right there. Those little things, right? Those little things to like get the right ingredients inside of us. Like if we're not fueling ourselves the right way, like if we're not putting in the right food, the right amount of water, the right oxygen, and actually thinking about the right things, guys, we're just going to pinball through life. And I'm going to be honest, like in the midst of doing this now, like, being part of IM for coming up, I don't know, almost 3.5 years, you get to encounter a lot of people some that stick and stay and create results, and some that just show up for a few months and disappear because they don't show up to the mindset leadership type of stuff where you start to actually become exposed to higher level of success and thinking and mentorship, which then helps highlight the things in your life that you actually need to change to level up across the board. And that's the hardest part, is watching people show up thinking, I just want to make money, I want to make money, and they get nowhere. And they just spin their wheels, and then they leave and they think it's all a scam because they didn't create success for themselves. Meanwhile, internally, there's other things going on that are just like, until that you come into alignment, like you said, everything else is just like a wishful thinking in the future one day. But bro, I so appreciate you and your time. I know we'll keep this conversation flowing, man. I just really enjoy doing this. And so, I don't know. Maybe same time next week or in a week, or 2 weeks, whatever. We'll just see what comes up next. Guys, drop some, comments to us. Maybe send us some messages if there's anything in this live or in this recording that stuck out to you that you'd like to hear more of. Like, we're just really on a mission to level up ourselves and our community as much as possible. And so, that might be in aspects of your health, your fitness, your mental game. You said that thing about meditation, bro. It's like I wrote in the chat there, to become familiar with. It's like if you're not familiar with the better version of what your better version looks like, it's like without a clear vision of your future, you're going to return to the vision of your past. Little things like that. And so, if anything stuck out to you watching this thing, if you want to know more about the cold water, the breath work, all the little things that are free in life, I mean, you can obviously take it further and spend money on healthy food and spend money on good supplements or good health hacks or no, things that are going to do good things to your body. But in the meantime, if there's something you feel God highlighting for you that can shift or change, then just start a conversation with us. Like, just start going, you know what, there was something you said that I felt a little bit convicted about inside, that I feel like that's maybe the one thing that I could shift right now, which will cause everything else to improve. Because we still got time until the end of the year. I know that the end of the year kind of means nothing, but at the same time, I know psychologically, when you approach the 1st of January with a plan and with clarity, and then you attack the year from the 1st of January onwards, it's amazing how you can create momentum psychologically into the year. I remember Alex saying, I think the work you put in the beginning of the year, in the first 90 days, determines the results you're going to have for the entire year, just because of how we're wired and how society runs in that calendar. So little things like that. But I mean, Rich, any closing thoughts? I know we got some people in the chat dropping some love in there, but yeah, man, anything else in your mind?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, as you and I have been having these conversations almost every day, I think one of the things that we are passionate about clearly is just having more conversations about what we believe and what we value. And I think that, this whole be, do, and have, it seems like almost overly simple. It almost seems like, well, is this just like, is this real? Like this whole be, do, and have thing? But it really comes back to like what I believe and what I know what you believe and what I value and what you value are the same. And that's why, we are building something and creating something together. And, probably in the future, multiple things, which is exciting because when you align with not only yourself, but you align with the right people. I had a very legendary individual called me on my birthday. We had a 90-minute conversation, and I was really stoked after. And then he said, if you remember one thing from this call, he said, remember this: alignment over assignment. And he's like, when you align with the right people, it doesn't matter what you're doing, it's going to blow up and it's going to be amazing. But it's also, I took that into my own life as well and brought it in close for me. And I just went, if I'm not in alignment, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. The success isn't going to happen unless I'm in alignment. And being in alignment starts with, it's holistic. It's everything. It's your mental health, what you're eating, your physical health, what you do in the morning, what you do at night, your sleep, how much water you're drinking, taking care of you. But then from there, going into, okay, now I'm in alignment. Now what can I create? And then that assignment or that thing that you're going to create and that future, whatever it is, right? Wherever it is, like I would have never imagined 6 years ago that I'd be sitting here in this location, in this country, in this house, having a conversation and doing what I'm doing now. 6 years ago, I would have been like, dude, that sounds crazy. But it's not about the journey is the destination, and this journey that we're on, we're all in it together. And I think that one thing I love about relationships and one thing I love about just, building community or building real authentic relationships with people is that, you start to, it's like we think, okay, well, here we have this idea in our mind, right? And we go, this is how it's probably going to go. But then what happens is like, there's all these other, there's, it's like that meme. That's like that picture of like the road to success where it's like going like this. And I think that this is the point I'm trying to make, is when it comes to the only way you can fast forward your success, or the only shortcut to whatever success is for you, it's mentorship. It's having somebody to say, learn from my mistakes, or don't do what I did, do this, and then give you a game plan and give you a roadmap and give you a formula and say, this is what worked for me. And for me personally, like I've invested probably $15,000 in the last 5 years, probably with all the conventions and all the events, probably more like $30,000. in being in the right rooms, having the right coaching, mentorship, leadership, having the right conversations, working hard in order to, be able to sit next to a certain individual at a certain dinner, on a certain boat, at a certain time. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've invested so much time and money and energy into getting around the right people because I know that's the only shortcut. And I think that, sometimes we forget that. And we forget that, like, you have to be surrounded by the right people, but you also have to look at, what am I doing on a daily basis? Who am I being and becoming? And if I become the best version of me, I'm going to be able to do and have the things that I want. And I think that's an exciting place to be. It's a really, really exciting place to be. So I'm excited, man. I really am. I'm excited about the rest of this year. I'm excited about, the future, no matter who the president is. I'm still excited. You know what I mean? Because I know that, when we control the things that we can control, and that's what we focus on, when we focus on controlling our controllables, what we, think and say and do, life is amazing. And life is incredible. And we can truly live a life of, like, peace and having calmness of mind, being, being excited about life and creating the things that we want to create. And for me, bro, I'm grateful for you to just bring this up, and this idea of, like, hey, let's start having these conversations and letting other people listen, because I love having these conversations with you. I think that you're probably one of the easiest people to talk to that I've ever met. So that's a compliment for you. I want to acknowledge you just for your, I guess, your authenticity as well. Like, I think that as a leader, I think that if you become a leader in anything, usually you're the one that takes the blame. Usually you're the one that people point to and say, well, I'm not where I want to be because of this person or whatever. Or the mantle of leadership can be tough. It can also be extremely rewarding, but it can be, being a leader can be lonely. It can be difficult. It can be, there's seasons where you're going like, dude, am I doing this right? And I just want to acknowledge you, bro, for your authenticity and your work ethic, and just the fact that, like, you truly do love the people. And that's why, we're able to do stuff like this, and it's actually able to make a difference for other people because it's real. So appreciate you, bro, and looking forward to doing another one.
Thanks, man. Appreciate all those kind words, and just, bro, all of the crazy amount of love and time you've poured into helping me get better, right? Like, I mean, flying to New Zealand twice, coming, I mean, I don't know how many countries you've hung out in now, but just always making space for this. Like, it's been super fun. Like, every time we get to chat, it goes beyond an hour or two, or sometimes three, without even realizing it. Because, yeah, we're both obsessed with this idea of becoming better and helping other people do the same. I mean, that to me is just this whole thing of the fit life, man. It's like, what does it look like for every area of our lives to improve so that we can actually become all that God's called us to be, and then also have a positive influence on those around us and behind us, because we get to lead into that abundant life. So, bro, thank you so much for your time. Looking forward to the next one already. And guys, thanks for joining us live. If you're watching this recording later, like I said, reach out. If you've got any comments or anything, I can see there are a few things you guys have been posting there. It's so good to see, like, some of you guys that Michael did a water fast and for a season felt, so good during that time because he dropped all the inflationary foods and things, wanted to do another one. It's like, it's amazing when you actually make some of these changes and you feel the changes, you can fall in love with what it's like to be better. And you realize, like, when you ask yourself, like, what is this thing giving me? What is it like? And when you ask that, and you drill a little bit lower and start figuring out your internal needs and desires, and realize, like, am I just having this because it's doing something to me chemically? Or is it distracting me? Is it numbing me? You start to then get really intentional about that time that you spend and the things that you put in, and just become clear on that thing that you're aiming for. Like, fall in love with that better version of you and become familiar with it, meditate on it, let God speak into that. And then watch how, as you approach the end of this year, you will start to really accelerate with momentum into 2025, so that you can make that your year of breakthrough. Maybe this is your year of breakthrough. Maybe you're already experiencing some of these things, but if you want to level up and take it to another level, then let's keep chatting about this. So for now, guys, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks so much again for your time, and we'll catch you in the next one in the chats. All right, love you all. Catch you soon. Bye.